So we're kind of still learning our way through all the new things that are going on as we reopen our church and prepare to celebrate spirit and community and being together today. So we do have several participants that are still on the Zoom system for various reasons. And then you have me, here live and all of us here live together. So it's a little bit of work in progress yet as we figure out how to best integrate the two gatherings, I'll say, those that are here virtually and those that are here live in real life. So thank you for bearing with us as we learn through this process together. So good morning everybody, and welcome to Church of the Angels. As you probably know, we are an independent, non-denominational, interfaith spiritualist assembly, and everyone who gathers here in this sacred space, whether it's here in physical form or here in virtual form, everyone here is valued for their unique qualities. We gather in a safe community to worship as equals in an exchange of energy through love, thought, and communication. Thank you for your cooperation again as we learn how to navigate the integration of these two systems. So my name is Reverend Cindy Hudson. I get to be your facilitator today. The service part is being recorded on Zoom so that participants that couldn't be here now can view the session later on. The recording will be stopped, however, before we start the message portion of our service, so that we can honor the sacredness of working with service. So the messages will not be recorded, but the speaker of the songs will be recorded. So in true spiritualist tradition, our service does celebrate all four aspects of meeting. And the first is the uniting of our vibrations through music, prayer, and quiet reflection. The second offers spiritual healing. The third embraces inspiration and thought exchange. And finally, we communicate messages from spirit. We're going to be together for about an hour, and we appreciate your help with a few logistics for those who are here in the actual church space. Masks or face shields are to be worn over the nose and mouth through the duration of the service. We would ask that you please practice social distancing and try to stay in your seat unless you're getting up for distant healing. Unfortunately, we don't have fellowship time at this point. Again, that kind of mingling and food stuff is just something we feel is a little bit more of a risk just yet. And then the folks that are in Zoom land don't feel left out of fellowship. It's, nobody's missing the cookies but me. I miss cookies. And we do have wipes and hand sanitizer available at the side as well for those who choose to use that. The Church of the Angels tries to be as inclusive as possible, and we invite those of all opinions and backgrounds to join us for our services. All speakers are prompted to leave politics and any politically charged topics outside of our gatherings. This is to promote spiritual unity. We know that our true selves are always united in love. And I want to mention that if you wish to make a donation, you can do so through Church of the Angels website. You'll also have an opportunity when you go on to that, you can link into making that donation a recurring one if you choose, and that makes it a lot easier than trying to remember to do a donation. There's a separate donation page on our website, or within that page, that you can choose what or where your donation is going for. So if you've participated in a class or a development circle, you can designate the funds for that. Here in our church space, we don't pass the baskets for safety, but we do have them located in the back and in the side and then the very side. If you choose to make a donation, we appreciate that and want to give a big shout out of gratitude to everybody who's made donations throughout the year to keep our lights on, keep our Zoom sessions flowing, and make church happen as it does, because we know it doesn't run just on fumes. So again, thank you very much to everybody. And at this time, I'm going to ask you to rise. And if you're here in the physical church space, you get to silently sing our first hymn. If you're on Zoom and you're in your own house, sing away. And then please remain standing for our opening prayer. So if technology will cooperate, we will have our opening song. And tune it up. This is for you, by the way, Reverend Debra.
I can see clearly now the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. Gone are the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be a bright, 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 sunshiny day. gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. I think I can make it now. The pain is gone. All of the bad feelings have disappeared. Here is that rainbow I've been praying for. It's gonna be a bright, 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 sunshiny day. Look all around, there's nothing but blue sky. Look straight ahead, nothing but blue sky. I can see clearly now, the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles my way. Gone up the dark clouds that had me blind. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day. It's gonna be a bright, bright, sunshiny day.
Mother, Father, Infinite Spirit, thank you for your blessings on those who have joined here today to honor your work and experience your grace and wisdom. Thank you for providing the appropriate thoughts and insights, actions, and all resources for us to gain a better and truer understanding of your love by the words spoken, the songs sung, and by the messages and healing brought forth here today so that we might lead healthy, happy, and prosperous lives. Thank you for showing us the way to accept responsibility for our lives. We are grateful to know you are with us always. And now I'd like to share a Lakota prayer. Wankantaka, great mystery. Teach me how to trust my heart, my mind, my intuition, my inner knowing, the senses of my body, the blessings of my spirit. Teach me to trust these things so that I might enter my sacred space and love beyond my fear and walk in balance with the passing of each glorious sun. And so it is, amen. Please be seated. Thank you. All right, so the folks that are out there on the computer, I'm hoping you can hear me okay. I know you heard the music and you're here. Okay, so we got the microphone moved down, did help. Okay. Last time folks were having trouble hearing me. So we're trying to figure out what's the reasonable accommodations here. All right, as you know, this is a sacred assembly, and to avoid interruptions and to maintain the sacred nature of our service, all phones and/or recording devices are to be turned off throughout the entire service. I will let you know that the tablet you see here is recording the person at the podium visually. And like I said, we will turn off the recording for the message portion, but this is going to pick up the person who's standing at the podium. And that is the only recording that is to be going on at this time. And then we can share it with people online. We've got people that have moved away, got to reconnect with us. So it's pretty cool. It's just trying to navigate everything. So please join me silently as I read our statement of principles out loud. And if you'd like a copy, you can certainly find it on our website. And you can follow along if you'd like in your mind, and we will start. There is one creative force of which all life is a part. This one creative force is known by many names and manifestations. We recognize and honor the many names and manifestations of the one creative force, the source of all creation, one in God. The energy of life everywhere is continuous. All consciousness is continuous. Communication is continuous. The energy of life, consciousness, and communication never cease, even after the event that is perceived as death. One creates one's own reality. One creates in harmony with the one creative force, the great power of God, of which all life is a part. Reality is as one chooses to perceive and will change as one grows in knowledge of the inner self and one's relationship with the God of his understanding. All things are possible with faith, insight, knowledge, understanding, acceptance, and love. Love is the unifying energy of the universe. Love is the energy of the one creative force, the wisdom of God. All life and all mankind are one in the creatorship and healing force of love and with each other. Love is within us and of us. Love is never apart from us. It is we who separate ourselves from the power of love. The force of God works through love and love alone. And now we'll have a few moments of quiet meditation so we can kind of concentrate on going within, finding that peace within ourselves, because we know as within, so without. And we can try to calm ourselves, center ourselves, feel grounded, and feel ourselves connected for the next few minutes. And we will have some music, courtesy of technology. And gently now, allow yourself to come back into this present space. Allow into the peace and quiet, knowing that it is with you at all times. And we can use this peace and calm to take care of ourselves, those around us, and our communities, bringing through the divine love, light, and wisdom into the world in whatever way you can. And at this time, please add silently or out loud the names of those you wish to include in this sacred space for healing, for their highest and best. Okay, now it is time for inspiration and thought exchange brought to us by today's speaker. And we invite everyone to address our assembly with words of inspiration, lessons learned, passionate ideas that you may hold. Every opinion expressed here is strictly that of the person who is giving it. Let us consciously and lovingly agree to disagree if the ideas don't resonate with us in particular. And so it is my privilege today to present Rev Debra Vegh as our speaker. She's been on a spiritual path all of her life, but like most of us, she was oblivious to it for a large portion of that time. Looking back, she's now able to recognize the many glimpses of God's glory and God's love as it shone through for her. She is sincerely grateful that she is now able to see more clearly. And so I bring to you Rev Debra Vegh. Thank you.
I don't know how I look on here, how loud I am, so let me know. Zoom people. Hi, everyone. I'm so grateful to be here. Take a moment with me and take in a nice deep breath and exhale. That just helps me calm my nerves as I stand up here today with you. I'm so grateful to be here. Like I said, I wasn't sure how I was going to feel coming in. I've kind of kept myself away from gatherings with people. And it isn't because I don't want to be around people, because I do. And it isn't because I'm afraid of this virus, because I'm really not. It's more seeing us in mask and seeing us distance. And I'm such a hugger. And I'm like, oh, how am I going to feel? You know, coming in, I just want to grab everybody. So energetically, I'm grabbing each and every one of you and giving you a big hug right now. So what I find is, topics tend to find us when it's time to do a talk or when I'm asked to do a talk. And many of you know, some of you know, at Christmas, I went home to be with my mother. In the last few weeks of her life, she had suffered for quite a long time. Her body was pretty sick for a long time. She had lung cancer. Gratefully, she never got COVID, even though I held my breath for a year, just, her being in and out of hospitals, in and out of nursing homes. And when I was with her, and right at the time we put her in hospice, we called in hospice to help, a friend of mine reached out and asked me to do a talk for a women's group called Drop the Rock. And she wanted me to do a talk on the book A Return to Love by Marianne Williamson. And I'm like, yes, of course. I knew the timeline. I was going to be back in Ohio by then. I knew, my mom didn't have very much longer. And so I agreed. And I'm thinking I'll be able to talk on love and surrender and forgiveness, all the things the Return to Love is about. So of course I agreed, and she said, okay, well, I'll give you your topic in a few weeks, and da da da. So, it took a couple weeks right before I was to talk, she finally gave me my topic. And I found out I was going to be the keynote speaker, which was for 45 minutes, which I'd never done a talk that long. And I also found out my topic was the darkness. I was like, oh, what? No, really? At this time of my life, this is coming up? And it was based around this quote out of the book, Return to Love by Marianne Williamson. And it was, the groove of sabotage runs deep and automatic. Sure, I could change my thoughts, but not permanently. And there's no despair worse than God, I blew it, than God, I blew it again. I'm like, wow. Why is this coming up now? She gave me an out. She said I could bail if I needed to. She knew I was going through a lot. My mom had passed away February 8th. This talk was around the 1st of March. But I was like, no, I know God doesn't give us more than we can handle. And I know there's a reason that I'm being given this opportunity. and I need to look at it that like it's an opportunity. And so I started going within myself. And what I realized is about a year and a half ago, I did a timeline of my life. And I found out every time I sabotaged my life, whether it's through relapse or leaving a job that I was doing very well at or a divorce, something, when I did this timeline, I realized that every time I sabotaged my life, every time my life blew up, it followed a death or a tragedy, a death. Usually it was a death. And I realized, a year and a half ago that, this is grief showing up in ways that I didn't realize because I didn't know how to process grief. I grew up, we had a lot of tragedy and a lot of death in my family growing up. And my mother, God bless her, she practiced what we call the geographical cure. You pick up and you move somewhere else to start all over. And that's all great and wonderful while you're in the middle of the chaos of the move and the new place and you're getting excited. But 6 months later, yourself comes knocking on the door and she and you have to go through it. And she suffered a lot with depression in her life. And so I kind of just learned, I learned that from her. I just swept it under the rug, didn't deal with the grief, and just went on about my life. And then also in our Western culture, you get 3 days off of work, you get, a funeral, the visiting hours, a funeral, 3 days off of work, and then you have to get back into your life. People are there for you usually immediately, but weeks down the road when you really need it, where are you? Where are you at with the grief, with the loss, with handling how to deal with it? So when I had to do this talk, I realized that, and I was just like, wow. And it felt like I was right back, some of you know I had a salon down in Chagrin Falls, a beautiful space above Jenny's Ice Cream, overlooked the water. It was doing wonderful. I had 5 girls working for me this was back in 2013 when it actually blew up. And as I was preparing for this talk and then even, preparing for today, I realized my dad had passed away in October 2011, suddenly, of a massive stroke. My mom's best friend of 40 years passed away that following June. She got pancreatic cancer, and within 4 weeks, she was gone. A cousin, which we called Aunt, who was in my life, constantly passed away the same weekend as Charlene. I had a cat die that December of June 2012 that I had 18 years. And when I listen, I'm like, well, no wonder everything blew up. Even at that point, the salon, I wanted out. Here I am, the owner. We're doing great. I have 5 women under me. Things are going good. I wanted out. I started taking yoga teacher training. I started saying I wanted to sell the salon. And like I said, I look at it now. I'm like, that was all grief. I didn't know what I was doing because I didn't understand the process of grief. I didn't understand that we need to take time for ourselves and we need to find support and we need others to hold us. And the world today, we are all, whether it's a death, whether it's a loss of a job, whether it's a loss of our past lives, we're all grieving on such a level that it's just, we can't even fathom what it's going to look like and what's going to happen. So it's just, being asked to do that talk has really brought up so much in me right now. And what I'm learning is just to be patient with myself. The universe has a way of working. My life actually blew up before, with the COVID and with not being able to wear a mask at the salon because I had panic attacks and I got kicked out of where I was. So I guess that's one good thing, is my life partially blew up before I had to deal with this with my mom. But it also gave me the time and the space to be with her, which would have been a lot more stressful had, my life been going the way it had been going, because I would have still been paying rent and, all of these things with my business. So I'm really learning just to be patient with myself. And I think that's the message I want to bring to you today, is as we're all going through this. And I'm learning too to heal, because I know, and we've all been taught here at the church, and we've been taught working with, the energies and spiritualists and stuff, that what we do on a personal level, and all the gurus have taught us that, it ripples out. So I'm trying to really be patient with myself and heal this deep grief. And it's ancestral grief. My mom's grief's coming up because I recognize patterns in her that she never, and I used to tell her that too, because she would start crying and she would get upset because my stepdad passed in December of 2017. And my grandmother, died 20 years prior. And when she would start crying and start grieving, and she'd stop herself. And I'd be like, Mom, you got to let it process. You got to cry. And Louise Hay says we hold grief in our lungs, which interesting enough, this COVID and everything, it's all, it's that unprocessed universal grief that's coming out. So I think just really honoring that and honoring that space that we all have all this grief that needs to be processed. But on the other side of grief is gratitude. And that's even how when the salon blew up and I didn't realize it at the time, that's how I brought myself back. Was after they all left, I was up there by myself and I was having panic attacks. And like I said, I was going through this yoga teacher training and I was learning more about being within and gratitude. And I would stop myself in the middle of a panic attack with a client and I'd be like, okay, the sun's out. Seeing clearly, the sun's out, the window's open, the air feels nice, the water's warm, the client's happy. And I just brought myself back to what I was grateful for in that moment. And I had to keep doing that over and over and over because it would last a few minutes, but then a few minutes later, I'd feel the panic attack, the heart racing, the nervousness, the sweats, and I'd be like, Deborah, do it again. The sun's out, the water's warm, and I go back to this story a lot because it's so powerful. The power of gratitude, finding things to be grateful in that moment. And that's what I've tried to do, as I'm dealing through this grief with my mom's passing and all the other that's coming up, is I just have to remind myself to be grateful that she's not in any more pain. The last 3 days of her life were pretty horrific, and or not her life, but that she was at home, and she cried for God to remove the pain. And even when I'm doubting how things played out or my role in it, or did I do the right thing, the other day I was meditating about that, and I heard God's voice, and it was like, who are you to doubt? You're not in control. And I'm like, you're right, I just need to be grateful that it happened the way it was and I was there to be with her. I wrote this poem I'm going to share with you about a year ago. Actually, it was a year ago today. And it is about grief. And I was in a group that was reading the book. Oh no, I forgot the name of it. Hold on. Wild Edge of Sorrow. We were in, and I didn't finish it because it was too heavy for me at the time, because I was grieving my mother, what was happening, and I was grieving what was going on in the world. But I did write this poem that I want to share with you. And it was called Last Night I Cried. Last night I cried and I cried and I cried through the night. I sat in the dark on the cold bathroom floor, rocking myself, crying, crying, and crying some more. I want to go home, I want to go home, I want to go home, I cried, longing for the energetic home in the realm of the light. Why did I come here? Why now, when the pain is so great? I cried and I cried, my heart hurt and my head ached. I sent my love away so I could grieve and release the pain. Through my tears, I cried and I cried. I cried for Mother Earth. I cried for all the abuse she has taken over the years. I cried for the children, all the pain they have endured, the abuse, neglect, abandonment, all they have absorbed. I cried for the women, the injustice they have received from fearful men disillusioned by the patriarch of deceit. I cried for the men, the wounded boys that were not allowed to cry, told to man up, to hide their sorrow deep down inside. I cried for our ancestors, their grief, their ancient pain, locked into our bodies, in ourselves, waiting to be healed. I cried and I cried until my tears dried. I released the pain through my tears as they streamed down my cheeks onto the cold, cold bathroom floor. I finally arose, exhausted, knowing there was more. More tears to come, but not for tonight. For tonight it was enough. Tonight it was done. I made my way to bed after washing my face, water's blessings in a cold, sweet embrace. As I lay in bed, my chest began to relax. A crystal heart pressed to mine, listening to the angels sing me to sleep. I finally drifted into the calm sea of the night. The dark waves rocking me, soothing my soul. Stars glistening in the black of the night. Angels twinkling from above as peace settled in. I felt all of our souls embraced in their love, bringing me peace, releasing all of our collective grief. I just share that with you just because, we do have this collective grief that we're letting go of. I found this meditation on grief by Jack Cornfield. And he wrote, when after heavy rain the storm's clouds disperse, it is not that they've wept themselves clear to the end. Grief is one of the heart's natural responses to loss. When we grieve, we allow ourselves to feel the truth of our pain, the measure of betrayal or tragedy in our life. By our willingness to mourn, we slowly acknowledge, integrate, and accept that truth. It takes courage to grieve, to honor the pain we carry. We can grieve in tears or in a meditative silence, in prayer or in song. In touching the pain of the recent or the long-held griefs, we come face to face with our genuine human vulnerability, with helplessness and hopelessness. These are storm clouds of the heart. Most traditional societies offer ritual and communal support to help people move through grief and loss. We need to respect our tears. Without a wise way to grieve, we can only soldier on, armored and unfeeling, but our hearts cannot learn and grow from the sorrows of the past. To meditate on grief, let yourself sit alone or with a comforting friend. Take the time to create an atmosphere of comfort when you are ready. Begin by sensing your breath. Feel your breathing in the area of your chest. This can help you become present to what is within you. Take one hand and hold it gently on your heart as if you're holding a vulnerable human being. You are. If y'all want to do that with me, put your hand on your heart. Just take a deep breath. As you continue to breathe, bring to mind the loss or the pain that you are grieving. Let the story, the images, the feelings come naturally. Hold them gently and take your time. Let the feelings come layer by layer, little by little. Keep breathing softly, compassionately. Let whatever feelings are there, pain and tears, anger and love, fear and sorrow, come as they will. Touch them gently. Let them unravel out of your body and mind. Make space for any other images that arise. Allow the whole story. Breathe and hold it all with tenderness and compassion. Kindness for it all, for you and for others. The grief we carry is a part of the grief for our world. Hold it gently and let it be honored. You do not have to keep it anymore. You can let it go into the heart of compassion as you weep silently or aloud. Releasing the grief we carry is a long, tear-filled process. Yet it follows the natural intelligence of the body and the heart. Trust it. Trust the unfolding. Along with meditation, some of your grief will want to be written, to be cried out, to be sung, and to be danced. Keep in mind that grief doesn't just dissolve. Instead, it arises in waves, and gradually, with growing compassion, there comes more space around it. The heart opens, and in its own time, little by little, grasp of new life, breaks in the rain clouds appear. The body relaxes, and freer breaths appear. This is a natural cycle you can trust, how life in the heart renews itself, like the spring after winter, it always does. And I'll just share one more little quote from Rumi. Sorrow prepares you for joy. It violently sweeps away everything out of your house so that the new joy can find space to enter. It shakes the yellow leaves from the bough of your heart so that fresh green leaves can grow in their place. It pulls up the rotten roots so that new roots hidden beneath have room to grow. Whatever sorrow shakes from your heart, far better things will take their place. Thank you all for allowing me to serve. Love you.
We have Got composed myself now. Ooh, we all have different elements of grief in our life in different time frames. Mine are fairly fresh too. So, thank you. Thank you for that. So at this point, I will entertain comments, questions for Reverend Deborah from those here in the church space and or those here in Zoom space. I'm looking at the chat box on Zoom. Powerful, provocative poem, Deborah. That's one of the comments in the chat space from Angeline. Definitely was a beautiful poem. Any other comments? Reverend Pat.
Thank you, Rick. I'm glad you reminded us not just the grief over the passing of someone we care about, but the changes in our lives that occur that we don't recognize that we need to grieve over the changes that in order to move forward. So I appreciate you brought that up. As you can see, there's been a few changes in my life, and it's been difficult.
So Reverend Pat was just sharing for those that maybe weren't able to hear that she is giving gratitude to Reverend Deborah for acknowledging that we have to grieve the changes in our life. And Pat has certainly had changes in her life in the past year, and that it's not easy. So grieving those changes can be very powerful for all of us as well. And also in the chat room, we have great job. Thank you for sharing yourself with us from Reverend Carol Wood. And also from Batya really helped me a lot of ideas on how to deal with grief about the Holocaust, since I'm reading a book about the Holocaust. So yeah, a lot of grief there to help, and these words help process that powerful, beautiful message. And then thank you for sharing your grief and growth, including techniques and your wondrous poetry, Deborah. And that's from Barbara D. So a lot of gratitude. And then Fran here has something to say.
I think your message was really strong. And I think it's something that we could all learn from, especially, when you are grieving, you're embarrassed of it. You don't want anybody to see you cry ever. It's like, oh, even when it's a real personal loss, you try to stifle that grief. And I think I don't think we need to be a blubbering society, but I think we do need to realize that we do not need to be embarrassed about our grief. Our grief is something we need to experience, not hide.
And Reverend Sally?
I just want to put this out to you that I've read from many people and helped many people. Hopefully not done yet. But I've become aware that a loss can be of a person, of moving on to another place, and to a business and a person and a place. And that takes time. And you really need to have patience for you. And people need to understand that. My niece called me a couple years ago and lost her fiance tragically. And a few months later, people were saying, well, you should move on. That's not possible. You need a year to grieve, a year to move into a different situation. The loss is for a year, getting over it for a year, and move on is another 6 months. So figure where you're at in this position and be aware of it. Don't think you have to move on fast. You have things take a long time, a year to grieve, a year to move into a different situation, because that year's gone and you're like January, the next January, new things are happening. You have already gone a year, and then you need 6 months to process it. So wherever you're at, be kind to yourself, be gentle, and be aware of where you're at.
Thank you, Sally. Any other comments here? And then I'll read off some of the Zoom comments as well. Yes, Michael.
Just wanted to say thank you for mentioning also the grieving environment. I have an opportunity to be a part of a group, and I'll be a big part of it. So this is a good mirror that is within me, and that needs to be honored. That it's not just flighty thing that I can just move on in one moment and just, as she was saying, I'm sorry, moving, to, take your time and to be gentle with yourself.
Mhm. Thank you. And I think that's how Reverend Deborah started, was to be patient with yourself. And then some of the comments from the Zoom room, and I'm sorry, anybody who's on Zoom looking at me pick up the tablet, it's just a lot easier to read this way. Again, we have from Alexander, this was amazing. Really important to know how to handle situations like that. Acknowledging and showing gratitude to them really keeps you in the present moment. Bless you, Deborah, for the space that you hold. Also, we have from Elena, good talk about grief. I felt really strongly about how work only gives us 3 days off, and people are there when you need them, but not weeks later when you really need it. Very touching. This is from Tom Distill. Very touching. Thank you, Deborah. Accepting grief as a part of living is a journey we all learn from, as it happens to us again and again in many ways at various expected and unexpected times. Thank you for sharing your grief. And then from Anne-Marie, there is no timeline for grief. We all process it in a time best for ourselves. So I feel that Deborah, your talk touched many people on many levels, and whether we had Earth Day this week, right? And you acknowledged Mother Earth, as has some of the comments in the Zoom room. So powerful, powerful stuff, and patience with ourselves, huge lessons. So thank you for that. And thank you to everybody who commented and shared, both here and through Zoom. It's nice to be able to feel connected this way. We all heard the same talk and had our hearts touched. So thank you for that. And at this point, then I will move on to announcements, okay? So you can join the Church of the Angels at meetup.com to get a schedule of our events. You can visit our website at www.thechurchoftheangels.net. You can find us on Facebook, so we're out there in more ways than one. And membership forms can be requested by email. If you're interested in becoming a member, please fill out the form online, and you can just send it to the church's email address. And then on a weekly basis here, so announcements for today. At 1:30 to 4 o'clock, so 2.5 hours, we have Reverend Carol Wood leading a session on discovering your past lives. It will be online through Zoom, but Reverend Carol would be a wonderful resource for discovering your past lives. And it was very popular last time she offered it, and that is for $30. This Wednesday, the 28th, is a virtual meditation at 7 p.m., again online. And then Thursday, the 29th at 7 p.m., Reverend Vicki Jones is going to be leading a crystal vibrational healing session. She does a beautiful job with that as well. That's online, and that's $15. So that's a real deal there. All of this is a real deal. Next Sunday, just to remind you, next Sunday we will only be online. At this point in time, as we reopen and work out the bugs, our second and fourth Sundays, we're both places, live and online. And then the first, third, and if there's a fifth, it is only through Zoom. And next Sunday will be our Spirit Message service. Coming next month in May, okay, April showers are going to bring May flowers. So next month, the anniversary drive-by celebration will be on the 16th of May. We have our foundational pastor, Reverend Walt, will be helping us celebrate here at the site of the church. So come drive by the physical church space and help us celebrate 26 years. I have a little small gift giveaway for you all too. And then on Sunday, May 30th, it's Memorial Day weekend, and we have our memorial service. So please send along the names of those you wish to be honored during that service to Reverend Jenny through the church email, and you can find it on our website. And I'm going to check the chat room for any other announcements or messages of announcements, as opposed to spirit messages. And then if anybody here has an announcement too. So Bache Weinbaum says next art workshop painting from the Painting from the Divine will be on Zoom at 9 a.m. on May 7th. 10 a.m. on May 7th will be Writing from the Divine Feminine, and you can contact her at weinbaumbatya@gmail.com, and that's in the chat room, so people that want that reference can get that information. And I don't know that there's any other announcements from the floor, from Reverend Jenny, whose face I see. Nope, okay. All right, we get to move into some other cool stuff today and shift it up a little bit. So to usher in our time for truth and messages from Spirit, we're going to please rise. And if you're in your own, sorry, the thing had to get turned back on again, so she was talking to me. But we're going to have another song to bring in our time for truth and messages from Spirit. So I'm going to ask those of you here live to stand and silently join me in singing. And those of you in the Zoom room, if you choose to sing, go for it.
The peace of the rivers be with you, the peace of the oceans too. Peace falling over you. God's peace flowing in you. The peace of the earth be with you, the peace of the heavens too. The peace of the rivers be with you, the peace of the oceans too. Peace falling over you. God's peace flowing in you. The peace of the earth be with you. The peace of the heavens too. The peace of the rivers be with you. The peace of the oceans too. Peace falling over you. God's peace flowing in you.
Thank you. Please be seated. The recording will now be stopped by our Zoom host to preserve the sacredness of the messages that we will be sharing here next. And for those of you who are watching this on video later on in the week or whenever it may be, thank you for your support, and remember that you are always connected to the divine and to all of creation. So we're going to